and help me set up GoFundMe page. Thank you so much.
Well, what a great way to start our summer. Thank you and for all your hard work and perseverance. All right, our next item on the agenda is correspondence. And at the time the agenda was prepared, we did have one letter, one piece of correspondence from Nina Taylor Kopliska in appreciation of Principal Kirsten May. So thank you for that. And at this time, we will open it up for public comment. And this typically is for items, people who wish to comment on items of interest to the school board that are not, that don't appear on the agenda this evening. However, if there is an agenda topic you'd like to address us on, you can choose to wait until we reach that on the agenda. Or if you are not wanting to stay around, you can address us now. You will have each public speaker, each commenter has 3 minutes. We adhere to that strictly. We do not have forums this evening. So if you are interested in addressing the board in person, we will take in-person comments first, followed by anyone who wishes to address the board on Zoom. So is anyone here in yes? And please state your name and we'll let you know when the 3 minutes are beginning.
Sure. My name is Jamie Lewis.
Okay.
And I'm actually just addressing what happened with Augustine. So,
okay.
Is that okay? Is this an
Yes.
appropriate
So
time?
your 3
Okay.
minutes. Could you state your name again so Ms. Dawson can hear?
Yes, Jamie Lewis, JAIME LEWIS.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, school board, for recognizing Augustine. It felt important to me. The family wasn't really going to make it public, and it felt like such a huge accomplishment to me. And I found out when he was in Washington, D.C., that he was there. My daughter Lulu came home from school and said, "Did you know Augustine is in Washington, D.C.? He's doing something with history." And I asked a little further and contacted Yuting, and it turns out he's just rocking, crushing this history bowl. So what we did, the Wang Zhao family has a lot of expenses in other ways, and so we put together a GoFundMe to send Augustine there. And would it be okay if I sent an email with the information, with the link to that? Is that appropriate? I'll send it to Dr. Prater. That's good. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, of course. All right. Anyone else here in person who wishes to address the board at this time? All right. Anyone on Zoom, Ms. Dawson, wishing to address the board? All right. Thank you. Thanks very much. And congratulations again. All right. We are dispensing this evening with our school representatives because they are enjoying their summer and will be back with us at the start of the school year. So at this time, we will move on to our superintendent updates. And first is our business and budget update, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yeah, so just a couple of quick items. The state legislature did pass a budget last week. And so waiting for the governor to sign that. They, of course, have to pass a budget by the end of the month so that they can get paid. So they do that. There's still a lot that happens. The governor has to go through it, has to potentially veto things, not veto it. The only thing that kind of came out so far that I read from some of our groups that assist us is that maybe the legislature actually reduced the amount of one-time money they were going to take back. So still waiting to find out the exact details of that, but it looks like it might be less than what was projected at May revise. So as soon as we know, we'll share that information with the board publicly. We'll put together what's called a 45-day revise, where based on the actual budget that comes out, whatever substantial changes there are, we have to post that, and that'll be at our August board meeting where we let you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then I know Diane's going to talk a little bit about summer school, but just to kind of frame it, our summer school is as big as most school districts in our area, right? So again, for Jeff Martin, who kind of leads the effort, to our bus drivers, to our principals that have stepped up, and administrators, teachers, everybody, right? I mean, it's pretty substantial, and I'll let Diane kind of talk a little bit more about that.
All right,
Okay,
with that
thank you.
introduction.
Yeah, and it's my one topic this evening, just acknowledging that summer school, summer experience, and our ESY have all begun. And I think Ryan said it. We have just bustling campuses, and I don't think you're going to see that in every district across the state of California. Our high schools, both Morro Bay and SLO High, are welcoming the high school students, and they're doing credit recovery classes. They're doing original credit classes and dual enrollment classes with Cuesta College. So a lot of opportunities for those students. We also have our summer experience. We've got our 5th through 8th at the high schools. So I do have to do a shout out for Ben Davis and Jane Holly, who are running those 2 schools right now and just doing a fantastic job. Our elementaries are Hawthorne, Monarch, and Sinsheimer, and they have our K through 4th graders. So again, a lot of student across our district. And then I don't want to forget ESY. So we have our extended school year through Student Support Services. Let's see, Janet Gould, Joyce Hanson. They've worked with their program specialists and teachers to really put on an amazing program for the students. We have 16 classes across 6 sites and about 140 special education students participating. So a lot going on across our campuses.
And we've added TK this year at those sites as well. And again, with the use of ELOP funds, we're providing families care from 7:30 to 5:30 all summer, during this entire period. So really a substantial program that the governors have supported, state legislators have supported. And so absolutely, yes, school-wide meals, right, for all students. We're actually also serving free meals at our sites where we have just childcare happening at those sites. Then of course, Erin, Primary, and her team are also able to offer free meals to any students up to the age of 18 at a few of our different sites throughout the district. So a lot of things happening, of course, during the summer. It's hopping. In terms of the bond measure, Measure C, Measure D, we're moving along with Measure D. Morro Bay High School, of course, finishing their classroom building, the library, ASB room, and then redoing the front of the pool parking lot area. That work has begun. And then at San Luis Obispo High School, moving right along, completion of the kitchen area, and by the fall, again, that the north end of the campus will be completed, the 100 end. So that's the library, career center, classrooms there, and they're gangbusters on that whole quad area in the middle as well. So and they'll get kind of half the road up the hill over the course of summer. All of that happening while summer school is happening on that campus. So kids are resilient, right? So they make it happen. And so so just a lot of things in terms of Measure C. We put together kind of a phase 2 budget for the next round of projects along with phase 1. And so I'll be presenting that information to the board along with discussion of delivery methods for each school site and each project for the phase 1 at our June 13th study session. So all of that information will come in July when we meet to kind of formalize a lot of information about that. So just a lot of work and effort going into these initial phases with that. We'll be met with all the principals, kind of, again, described what's happening, the timelines for those. We'll be doing a lot of meetings with stakeholders, teachers, parents, students, those types of things in August when kids come back, and look forward to kind of sharing that progress as we proceed.
Right. Thank you very much. Now you're headed to the podium because we have item 9.01, a resolution for delegation of signature authority.
So a couple of items tonight. So the first one is our annual designation of signature authority. We of course have Mr. Mayfield. It's like there's echo. Sounds on this one or what? so with that, it's annual, and we have, two new members coming on board, Lisa and Stephanie. And so tonight we're asking the board to update that signature authority, and that will, begin July 1st for next school year.
Right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us on this item? Any discussion on the board? Hearing none?
Just quick,
Oh, yes.
you mentioned Stephanie, the document just has Lisa in it, or is she signing authority?
You know what, Lisa may not be. So it's,
So Lisa
it's
is-
actually doesn't have her. So yeah, it's just the initial cabinet staff. So it's those listed there. It's Dan Block, Katie Eklund, myself, Lisa, and Dr. Prater,
Thanks.
and also Catherine Ovid, I should say, who's our first thing.
Mr. Banfield?
So my mistake.
Oh, your light is on. So I was,
It is?
that means I'm supposed to call on you. Okay. So I would like a motion, please.
Move approval of item 9.01, resolution number 222223, delegation of signature authority.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
Vamos entonces a hacer una moción, señor Banfield.
All right, Mr. Buckman.
Yeah.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Mrs. Roger,
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, motion carries 6-0 with one absence. And then followed by another resolution, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yeah, at the last meeting, the board approved emergency resolution to do some emergency repairs to Building 800, which is a special education building at San Luis Obispo High School. We found that through the storms, there was major damage to that building, a lot of water intrusion. And so kind of moving forward to ensure that building gets back ready to go for kids in the fall. The board moved forward with this. Because it's an emergency resolution, I actually have to bring it back to every single regularly scheduled board meeting to update you, let you know where we're at, what's happening with it until the project is completed. So they have quickly, within a week, taken the entire exterior of that building down. So the stucco gone, the entire inside is gone. We've had mold and different inspectors come in to ensure that the building is now safe from what they had. We found major dry rot throughout the entire plywood around the entire building, which is underneath the stucco. So the stucco basically had failed. The reveals, the windows, kind of throughout the building had failed. So great that we found that, took the stucco down, replacing the plywood now. And what happened with this building is because of that, the water intrusion and even some of the interior wood became termite damage. So the termites go after areas that are easy to attack. And so there were several of the interior boards that had to be replaced and changed out. So we're actually in a separate contract going to tint the entire building as we go through and kind of put it back together. So basically it's proceeding as we had expected, right, in terms of moving forward and really gutting the entire building to get it prepared. And so as soon as the tinting is done, they've already begun to put the siding on, back on to the new panels. So they're moving at a really good clip right now. And so again, I will continue to update the board as we go, and I'll throw some photos out to you to kind of let you see some of the work that's being accomplished.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us on this item? And nor on Zoom, it appears. All right, thank you. Then we'll come back to the board for any discussion or a motion. Mrs. Roger.
I'll move approval of resolution 232223, continuation of emergency that requires a procurement of construction services for emergency abatement, repair, or replacement at San Luis Obispo High School.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Roger, a second by Mr. Banfield. Mrs. Roger.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman. And I'm a yes as well, and that motion carries 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is a discussion item with regard to the DLI program update.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yes, good evening. I'm here with principals from Baywood and Pacheco, Principal May and Resod respectively, to give you an update on our dual language immersion programs. And also consultant Rosa Molina will join us via Zoom to update us on the task force and the comprehensive K-8 plan that we developed. We're going to go over a little bit about the curriculum adoption. We've already had some training in regards to that. We'll share a little data with you, beginning of the year to end of the year data at the two programs, and then talk about the framework towards the end. As you know, and this has been presented to the board before, there are many reasons why we do dual language immersion as a district, but the three main ones are to develop cross-cultural competence within students, bilingualism and biliteracy, and then academic achievement, with the ultimate goal being that students graduate high school with a seal of biliteracy. We underwent an adoption of curricular materials this year, and again, this timeline has been presented to the board before, but we selected two different adoption programs. We're going to use Maravillas in K1, and the English version of that is Wonders, and Adelante or Advance in grades 2 to 6. The teachers voted 100% to go this route, having two different curricular adoptions. We've already had our first 3 days of training. You'll see there on the box on the right-hand side, June 13th to 15th at Pacheco School. We'll have another 3-day opportunity in August for those teachers who couldn't make it. And then we'll set aside time during the year for teachers who couldn't make it to either one of those two options to make sure that they get training and planning time on implementing this adoption. The days went very well. Chelsea Smiley did a marvelous job of leading the teachers along with trainers from the respective companies on the content of these particular programs. And then teachers had planning time as well to start beginning to plan the first units of when they'll come back in the fall. We want to share a little bit of Baywood data, Daywood, I guess we'd call it. But Kirsten May is here from Baywood to share that.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to look at data in two ways. One is in the area of growth and the other is in the area of proficiency. So the first slide you see here is our early reading, and we're tracking growth in Spanish. So what we want to see is students that are getting out of that high risk and some risk categories and into what we call low risk. And so what you can see is some nice growth in kindergarten and first grade. One thing I want to note here is that when we got to our January screener, we noticed that we didn't see the kind of growth that we were expecting based on the interventions that we were providing. So we did an about face, readjusted, changed our interventions, and really came out with some nice growth data to show in that, next part of the year. I think one thing that's not on the slide that's really exciting is that our kindergarten growth is up 40% from trimester 3 of this time of last year. And our first grade data is up 15% from our growth data this time last year. So we were really proud of this. Next, we'll look at the proficiency data. That's that BAS benchmark assessment system, which we give in Spanish in grades kindergarten, first and second grade. You'll also see some nice growth numbers there. As you can see in trimester 3, as kids move from kindergarten to first grade to second grade and have more exposure to the Spanish language, the proficiency levels increase. So there's acquiring the language and being able to read in that language at play here. And then if we look for our reading growth data in second through fifth grades, we're looking at our English data. Altogether, we've had 15% growth if you combine all the grade levels, and then some really nice growth across each grade level. One thing that was really exciting in second grade was that we had 20% growth across the year, and I believe the district average was around 17. So even our students that were learning to read in Spanish in kinder, first and second grade really showed that, like English, that the transferable skills in English in second grade.
Kristen, were the second graders that you tested, were these the kindergartners that were in distance learning
They
during
sure
COVID?
were. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we had an amazing second grade team working with them this year. Mhm. And then we look at that proficiency data, which is that Lexile measure, and some nice growth across the board. Again, you'll see that second grade cohort really standing out there as well. And if we move into math, overall, we see some nice growth. We did see a dip in third grade, and we did see a dip in fifth grade. That third grade cohort will be moving into fourth grade next year, and the district's really looking at a fifth grade intervention, and we're starting to question if maybe we need to move that intervention into these incoming fourth graders instead, or in addition to. So that's something we're puzzling around for the coming year.
Good evening. Marcelo Huizar, principal at Pacheco. All right, I'll start with the BAS proficiency data. So I can see the whole. All right, overall, if you taken our kinders through second grade together combined, they made a 17% growth in the BAS. Again, this is Spanish. Decent growth in kinder and first, and superb growth in second grade. And I think we saw those jumps similarly to Baywood. We saw huge gains in second grade for the BAS. This is the early reading fast bridge. On this, it's hard to highlight things. And what I can say is that the assessment, we need to get a little bit more familiar with it as far as the teachers understanding what the students need to do, especially in kindergarten. At the beginning of the year in kindergarten, the students are asked to do recognize concepts about print, which is very, very basic literacy, such as recognizing the title of the book. If you hand the student the book upside down, they need to be able to flip it around. So that's weighted heavily at the beginning of the year, but as they go through T2 and T3, that changes. They're no longer tested on the concepts about print. They're being tested on sounds, letter names, syllables. So part of we're not gonna ignore that, obviously. We need to regroup and work with our MTSS coach, our intervention coach, and with our kinder and first grade teachers, and really recognizing what these assessments are about. And they are timed, so they're bound by time. A lot of those are 1-minute tests. And so we need to put some of that urgency in our students. It doesn't mean they don't know it. They just need to be able to know that it's time and it's automatic. This is the second through fifth grade reading growth in FastBridge. So here we see growth, second through sixth, 2%. In some of these grade levels, we see double-digit growth, or at least in second grade. And then the other grades, we're leaning towards growing with the exception of fourth grade. And I think that's, I guess we could label it the fourth grade dip, but again, we have some work to do there in that grade. This is the Lexile proficiency. So this is students moving up one proficiency level in the Lexile. 5% growth for second through sixth, and second grade, 27% growth. Again, a dip there in third grade, and not much growth in fourth, and slight growth in fifth and sixth. And again, I just want to make a comment that students are learning in Spanish for the most part. In second grade, it's still mostly Spanish, and as well as third. In third, it's 60% Spanish, 40% English. So they're primarily learning in Spanish. This assessment is in English. So we are holding them to a high level for achievement, but we have to understand that a lot of our students are still learning that second language. In math, we see growth throughout. Some grade levels, we see double-digit growth. Others, we see, a little bit less. But overall, I think it shows progress. In fourth grade, as far as the math test is concerned, we did get a 20% growth in math. Thank you.
We are taking a look. The FastBridge assessments are English assessments that are translated into Spanish, and we are looking at new Spanish assessments that'll do some different things that are written in Spanish. They're known as STAR, and that will be presented to the board next year. One of the difficulties we have with Spanish assessment is Lexile is still done paper and pencil because we haven't found a good high quality Spanish version that's electronic. And so the STAR program will do that for us. And like I said, it's written in Spanish, so I think it'll give us more accurate results of you know, how our students are doing. On one of the slides, let me see if I can find it for you. You can see the progression of the BAS proficiency. Look at the kindergarten score there, trimester 3, 18%. Keeping in mind that a lot of these students are newcomers to the language in kindergarten. But look what that growth does over first grade and second grade when they've had time to acquire the language. You see that presented in their scores. And the BAS assessment is one-to-one assessment between teacher and student, reading and showing their comprehension of the text. Okay. As you know, we began the process of working with Rosa Molina, who's executive director of the Association of Two-Way and Dual Language Education, or ATDLE. And Rosa worked with Pacheco when it was very beginning, back in the late 90s, which is pretty amazing. And to have her back with her knowledge and background and work with us again this year has been such a pleasure. And Rosa brings an energy and a laser focus to her work on improving programs. So it was really a pleasure to have her lead the task force. We met 5 times over the course of the year. We'll share with you the members of that committee shortly, but it was teachers, parents, and administrators led by Rosa. We have a draft version attached here at the bottom. It's linked at the bottom for you to take a look at. It's been sent out to the graphic designer who's going to make it look great, and we're going to bring it back to in August. Stephanie Shepard will have the pleasure of bringing that back to the board in August for your approval, but the rough draft is here. And with that, Rosa, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, I was very excited to work with Pacheco after such a long time following the progress of the program over the course of the years. And we had a very lively group and people who were great contributors to both the discussion and the work. And I appreciated having Diane Frost with us and the principals, Marcelo and Kristen, and of course, Rick Mayfield at the table with Carrie Blum as well. And excuse me, with Carl Blum as well. And we spent a lot of time just working through the elements, because the work that we're trying to do, the work that we have been trying to do, is alignment, ensuring that we have strong alignment to the principles of the guiding principles of dual language education, but also alignment between the implementation of the program at both schools. Baywood, of course, is in its initial years of implementation, and Pacheco has been doing this work for quite a while. And nevertheless, throughout the state of California and in the work that we do across the country, every 5 years or so, we need to go through this process. And this process of alignment will help us really reach the goals that are set out for the students that are involved in these programs. If these programs were bilingual programs, we probably could achieve the goal of bilingualism by the time the kids got to 3rd grade. But our work is much deeper than that. The work is by literacy. Literacy in both languages is going to take time. And I think everyone at the table, everyone working on this task force understood that the elementary program will need to advance into middle school and thus then advance into high school so that we can continue to move forward in this work. So using the research and the components of the guiding principles, we were able to talk about no, the alignment of the dual language program to the mission and the vision of the district. Talk about what are the components that we really have to pay attention to, and then the history. Work on having a strong rationale for the decisions that we're making about dual language programming in the district, and then review the research, because we're very often people start working through the model and then they forget the research behind it. So we really spent some time reviewing the important foundational research of this work, and I think that helped inform our next steps. So we went through it all. We talked about enrollment, and then the training of teachers, and then the marketing and the parent outreach, so that we could continue to call our programs dual language, or what we refer to in California as two-way programs, where you're working with native speakers of one language and combining them with native speakers of another. And by doing so, we were able then to ensure that that our schedules were correct, that our training guides were correct, and that we had enrollment policies to be able to market the program accordingly. So this schedule is the TK through fifth grade schedule. We spent some time discussing this, and we're hoping to put this into play at both schools. They may have different schedules, or beginning times and ending times, but the bulk of this work is on paper, so that whenever we have new principals, new staff members, new board members, new administrators in the district, that they understand that there's a plan, a daily plan for every single one of our programs. And the same is true then as we start working on the development of the middle school option for the district, that we have a minimum of 2 courses in Spanish as the students continue in the program. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then also the opportunity for them to be mainstreamed in with English dominant children into the regular core courses as well, so that students who are in a middle school program have 2 core programs, one in the Spanish immersion dual language program, and one in the mainstream English language development and math core program as well. So all of this is going to lead to great success and allow the students to meet the targets that we set forth of literacy in both languages, and a tremendous sense of self and advocacy, not only for the students that they work with in the community, but also for the language that they're learning. So it's been my pleasure to work with San Luis Coastal, and we are in the throes of doing the final edits for your final copy. And we hope to have it in your hands by the first week of July. So thank you so much.
Appreciate your participation. And Rosa is leading the ATDLE conference, which will take place this coming Thursday through Saturday. And teams from both Pacheco and Baywood will be there at that conference. And Stephanie Shepard, who will be taking my spot, will be there as well to begin her journey on dual language immersion and learning about how to make that program the most powerful that it can be. We've done a lot of work over the course of the year, and I feel like the programs are in a really good spot.
They are.
With my stepping away, and Rosa will continue to work with us. She also has a replacement coming at ATDLE, and that person will be brought on board as well. And so we'll just keep this relationship going and keep building our programs to be as strong as they can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you to Rosa Molina as well. Thank you. This is a discussion item, but I'll go to the public to see if anyone wishes to address us on this. And anyone from the board, Mr. Banfield.
What about after 8th grade? What happens?
Yeah, great question. So world languages is taught at the high school. We have tests that the students take when they finish 8th grade to determine their placement into high school foreign language. Oftentimes students leaving Pacheco have gone into level 3 or even 4 of Spanish at the high school and finished AP Spanish by their sophomore or junior year, and then been able to take another additional language course if they so choose. In order for entrance into college, students just need to finish the equivalent of 3 years of foreign language. And so by taking Spanish 3, that gives them the equivalent of 3 years of foreign language.
Has it ever been discussed? Like, for example, I noticed social studies is offered in Spanish. I attended a class over there. Chris Jones, I think, taught
Right.
the high school, the history class. Is there any kind of content class that is taught at the high school level besides language itself?
There is such a thing as two-way immersion at the high school level, but this particular plan is TK through grade 8. And then we feel like that will position students to be, successful moving into our world languages program at the high school. And that's certainly something that we as a district could explore in the future. And then our ultimate goal is to have kids graduate with a seal of biliteracy on their diploma.
Mr. Buckman.
Wouldn't be complete, Rick, without some questions.
Right.
So at first question I had was, we start the program at TK, and how do parents know, and how do we identify students to come in at TK?
Yeah, great question. So currently, the only students allowed in at TK at Baywood and Pacheco are English learner students or students who are siblings of current students within those two schools. Or if in Baywood, if you live within the boundary of Baywood.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So if you live within the boundary of Baywood, you would have the option to attend TK there, or an English learner or a current sibling of that program. And then parents are informed of the fact that it's a two-way immersion program. And if they intend to continue on with the two-way immersion program at Baywood, then it's recommended that they attend TK there. If they don't intend to continue on, then they're counseled to move to either Del Mar or Monarch Road.
And so we talk about EL, and we talk about siblings, and then so I'm wondering, this is not a fair question to hit you with, so if you don't have it, give me the data later. The SED versus non-SED families, especially early on. I don't know how you feel about the
We've been able
number.
to accommodate all of the students that meet the criteria in both TK programs. So nobody has been excluded other than the age exclusion, which is from the state of California.
Okay, and I appreciate accommodating. What I'm trying to reach is how do families that are not necessarily dual language families know about the program if they don't have siblings? And then what do we end up with possibly as a ratio, but maybe that's an unfair question.
Well, again, TK has that limited, you have to meet the criteria in order to qualify to go to the TK program in either school. But all families have the opportunity to attend at kindergarten level. Right. So if a child didn't meet the TK criteria, but they're interested in attending at the kindergarten level, we do outreach starting early in the year to preschools. There's so many places that we go to try and get the word out that open enrollment's coming in March, and parents have this opportunity both at the coast and in town at Pacheco.
Okay. And
we also, Mr. Buckman, provide free transportation to both Baywood and Pacheco. So in terms of the ability for a low-income family shouldn't hold them back.
Yeah. So I guess this isn't a question for later between the two of us, but my concern is that SED families may possibly not be taking advantage of the program because they may not know about it, or they're just sort of happy where they are and don't understand maybe the potential value of it. And so it's just maybe we'll talk about the outreach, because I looked at the plan. There's nothing that talks about the outreach, and maybe that's just a suggestion.
We've done that in a previous presentation, I believe, but there is quite a bit of outreach to reach families. There's always some that we don't get to, but certainly not for lack of effort or opportunities.
Okay. So I guess then my question is as I read this, whether that stuff that we've gotten in the past, maybe that's part of this plan, and it just got overlooked. If you already have it.
Some
I
of
mean,
the
you're kind of
outreach,
asking for input. I
some of
think.
the outreach things I believe are in the plan, but certainly we could augment that.
Mhm.
That's
Just-
my question.
And then I guess I have a clarification. It's my understanding that we do have EL families who choose their neighborhood school.
Absolutely.
They're perfectly,
The welcome
that's where they
centers
would like to go.
Right. The welcome centers are housed at Baywood and Pacheco. And so all English learner families, when they apply through open enrollment in the month of March, are directed to the welcome center. And then they're told of their opportunities to attend the program if they wish to do so, or their neighborhood school and what that means. And so a tester kind of walks them through that process. You know, your child, qualifies to attend the Pacheco program. Here are the benefits of that program. Even to the point where we share research with them, and then families decide. And then oftentimes they say, no, we want to stay at our home school. And of course, they'll receive a great education there as well.
So,
Thank you.
and so, and not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to. I guess my deeper concern is, and maybe the numbers would allay my fears, is that I'm a non-SED family. I know about the value of speaking of being bilingual, and I'm an SED family, and I don't. And then I'm concerned about maybe some of the other elementary schools losing some of their top students, or potentially top students, because they've left to go to Pacheco or Baywood.
Yeah.
So that it's a concern that I have, that we're sort of draining off those students.
I understand. I think I look at it through the lens of we're offering an opportunity of bilingualism to families, and it's not for all families.
Right.
I would tell you that Pacheco has the highest number of SED students in the elementary schools in our district. Not the highest percentage, but the highest number of SED students within our district.
Thanks. That's a good number.
I'm really stoked about the numbers that you guys both put up. One question that I have, and I don't know if it can be answered this evening, is: are we seeing one of the things that the board has put a lot of emphasis on is closing that achievement gap, narrowing the achievement gap. So when we look at the achievement data, the progress, are we seeing that that's happening with our non-SED versus our SED students?
I think across the board with our MTSS effort, we saw that. We saw SED students, EL students making slightly larger gains, not huge, but larger gains than our non-SED students. And that was certainly true at Baywood and Pacheco as well.
May I add a comment here to this? The program is designed as a K-8 to be able to also support that gap closure. When students are able to have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade program, what we know from the research and from our work across the country is that the gap closure becomes very evident in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So that's one of the impetus, that's an impetus for making sure that we have the program clearly delineated kinder TK through 8th grade. That's really the work that the task force was really engaged in, is thinking about the pathway for that reason.
Mr. Clausen.
You had a question about just the metrics that we reviewed. A lot of the focus was on the growth, which is really important, obviously. How do you think of the absolute numbers though, and what should we be considering there? Because like the absolute numbers range from the teens up to the 80s.
Yeah.
And is there a target? Is there a level that is generally a comfortable level versus an uncomfortable level?
Right. Good question. So what I'm looking for is progression. I pointed out in that one slide with students' reading scores moving from 18% in kindergarten at the end of the year to, I believe, 74% at the end of 2nd grade. 80% is that magic number. We're looking in 2nd grade to get 80% at grade level or above. Ideally, we get all the students, right? But 80% is that number.
Okay, so 80 is kind of an absolute target that is viewed as
80 is that sweet spot. I was
Okay.
going over the presentation this morning with one of the TOSAs, and we were talking about that. 80,
Okay.
80 is that sweet spot.
80 plus. Can I ask a second question?
Yes, sir.
So I'm curious about the training on the new curriculum, and kind of two components to that. do you think the new curriculum will help you or help us or hinder us in continuing to make progress on these metrics? I mean, just because it's new. And then secondly, I'm curious if after the training, you mentioned there's 100% support for the curriculum going in. Is the enthusiasm at that same level or higher or lower after the teacher training?
Yeah, great questions, both of them. I say unequivocally, this will help tremendously. I think it raises the bar. The level of rigor in these two programs is pretty impressive, what we're asking kids to do. One of the teachers, I believe it was second grade teacher at Pacheco, said, honestly, when I looked at this and started the pilot, I didn't think the kids could do it. But the way they have the lessons organized and the way they lay it out, they were able to access it and they were able to perform. One of the things that, we've had these programs in place for a long time, or Pacheco at any rate, and Baywood, relatively new, just over the last 3 years. And I would say that Pacheco has worked for a long time to do curriculum work and put things in place. For Baywood is just getting started. So having curriculum at Baywood, I think is extremely well received. And yes, finally, we're going to get some well-written, rigorous Spanish materials that we can put into place. Pacheco, I think, and I'm speaking frankly, I think it'll be a bit more of a challenge, and teachers are kind of, things that are new and it's a big shift, aren't always the most popular things, but it's a resilient group of teachers. And when we brought in the reading and writing units of study, there was no component of that was written in Spanish, and they made it happen in Spanish using the reading and writing units of study, which is pretty amazing. But doing all that work and then saying, okay, now we're going to transition to this other program, as good as it is, it's a change, and it'll take some work on our part to kind of help them along that process. So I would say that the 3 days were well received, but there were issues for sure. One of the things was the assessment, the reading assessment that's contained within the new curriculum. And we feel very strongly that it's something that we should use, and we haven't had, other than the BAS and FastBridge, a specific reading assessment that teachers have used. So that'll be another change. So there were some issues brought up and some things that we will work on moving forward, but it's going to be a long process of professional development, and that was just our first blush over 3 days.
Thanks. A thought occurs to me. Teach School has been an incubator, just like I Innovate, and I Innovate was taken to the other schools. And just seems that the success of Pacheco and how wonderful a program it is and how all the research says being bilingual is good, has there been any consideration about using that as it was a model for all of the schools? Not asking, just a thought that I had. It would be very interesting to carry this on to the other schools as well.
I'd be interested in hearing that conversation.
Yeah. And especially now that you don't have to, and then
I'll make my public comment.
Say it again. You'll make your comment. Save it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's.
But in response to that, though, another comment. In response to that, though, it's a tremendous need for staffing that's biliterate and bilingual to deliver a program like this throughout the district. So many of the school districts, for example, San Jose Unified started out with their first program and then extended it out to an additional program. Little by little, they build their staffing capacity. But even today, with 5 elementary programs, they struggle with the staffing issues. And that's, you're in a hub where you're going to have to really pay attention to that if you decide to extend to other schools. It's like, where will you get the staff to be able to deliver the program in the target language? It's the same issue that the Mandarin programs are facing right now, for example.
Dr. Molina, my idea would be to go to San Jose and steal all the teachers.
Okay, you're on record. Someone's listening to you. Yeah.
For discussion on this item?
I have one more question that
Yes.
it could probably be a follow-up, but I'm not fully familiar with the seal of biliteracy, but I've heard it discussed,
Yeah.
and would just be interested in learning more about that. And
Yep.
Is it specific to Spanish and English? Are we offering it in other? I've heard it in the context of other languages, which is
Mhm.
fine.
We do offer it in other languages, and there's rigorous criteria in order to get the seal, but it's certainly attainable, even in languages that we don't offer as a school. So if a student elected to pass the criteria in Mandarin, for example, they could do so and receive the seal of biliteracy in Mandarin and English. But we can be happy to present that.
Well, is that something that the graduates of our dual language program achieve consistently or inconsistently, or is that a pretty stated goal of the program? Is it a
It's absolutely a goal, and there are a number of students that we would like to see grow to receive the seal, but a lot get the seal.
Mr. Buckman?
Just as a follow-up, we have students complete the seal by literacy in ASL and Latin also at high schools.
that's the context where I heard about it. Makes sense. Yeah,
And along those lines, Rick, I guess, have we taken, or do we have the ability to track, I'll call them graduates, Pacheco graduates, Baywood graduates, and track them throughout their careers, maybe even beyond our district, and see whether they're performing better or equal, or if it does affect their lives in public education?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you anecdotally
Okay.
that it's unbelievable all the stories that we hear. I was hitting golf balls over the weekend, and I made a comment to the young woman who a couple slots down and about her golf. I said, "Hey, you're playing fantastic. You should, go head on in and celebrate with." It was her first time on the golf course, and she turned around and said, "Is that Mr. Mayfield?" And I was taken aback. I said, "Yes, it is." And she came over and told me what she's up to now. And she said, "I cannot tell you the impact that speaking Spanish has had on my life." And, she went to Mexico City working for Amazon to help with their supply chain, and went on and on about the program and the positive impact that it had on her life. And that happens a lot. Not on the golf course always, but it happens a lot.
So if I could just, you were instrumental in getting this program. So thank you for all the work you did.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayfield. All right, our next item, we're going to go out with the bang here tonight. We've got all these things.
I wanted to save the
discuss
best for
with us,
last.
yes.
But
10.02 update on local indicators.
there we are. So each year, we bring in front of the board some elements of the California state dashboard. And tonight I'll share with you our schools, our districts rather, local indicators. We have been asked as part of the LCAP process to present it to the board before July 1st of this year. The dashboard is an online accountability system that shows how districts and schools are performing on test scores and many other variables. There are two different types of indicators on this dashboard: the state indicators, which are generally data on student attendance, data on performance on CASP test and whatnot, and then local indicators, which is what we're going to cover tonight. Within local indicators, we fill out a rubric and rate ourselves. One of these scores here, not met for 2 years, not met or met. Those are the categories. The indicators, there's 5. They're not, the numbers aren't in order, but priority 1 is teachers and instructional materials and facilities. 2 is implementation of academic standards. 3 is parent engagement. 4 and 5 are state indicators. 6 then would be school climate. And priority 7 is access to a broad course of study. In the first one category, credentialed teachers, student access, and facilities in good repair. We met this, and our facilities are generally in excellent repair. We went through a Williams review last school year at C.L. Smith, and they looked at credentialing, they looked at facilities, and we'll do that again this year. It's a 2-year cycle, but we met in that category. In terms of the implementation of state academic standards, again, in filling out the rubric and completing the rubric. We met every category of that. The adoption, our instructional materials are aligned, and staff receive professional development. In terms of parent engagement, I wish they had category above met. Excel, I think we do a very good job in this category, and we're always looking for ways to improve. But we certainly met with just a few examples on this slide of the ways that we reach out and engage with our parent community. In terms of school climate, we have an administration of two different tools, the California Healthy Kids Survey and the Youth Truth. Those presentations have occurred in front of the board to give you that information. We analyze the results and report those out to the school board. So we met that criteria as well. And then in terms of access to a broad course of study, that happens at our two comprehensive high schools. And we met the criteria according to the rubric laid out by the state. And then if you would like more information and the public would like more information, they can get on the dashboard. There's a lot you can navigate around. There's actually a lot on there of interesting data and information about the progress that schools are making.
Thank you. This is a discussion item this evening, and I'll go to the public. Is anyone? Then coming back to the board, any questions or comments regarding this? Roger.
Well, it appears that the board has no specific comment regarding this agenda item, but speaking as one board member, but I think probably reflecting the views of the entire board, I'd like to acknowledge that this will be Mr. Mayfield's last board meeting, last presentation, and to thank you for your years of devotion to the students of this district, both as a teacher, a elementary principal, and a director of elementary learning and achievement. You have really gone above and beyond to put kids first, and I am deeply appreciative of your efforts, and I wish you the very best in retirement.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Mr. Block is approaching the podium. Our next item is 10.03, approval of memorandum of understanding with SLCTA.
Yes, thank you. Tonight in front of you, I have an MOU for stipends. Stipends are a part of our collective bargaining agreement with SLCTA. We had just a few updates to our stipend schedule. That's again part of our overall agreement. We had the opportunity to get a $15,000 grant run through the city, run through our foundation, and that's contingent on that stipend going forward. We also had some minor adjustments to existing stipends, in addition of a coaching stipend that sport wasn't in existence before. And a big change is something that was a mutual interest between SLCTA and the district was as you go down to SLO High or Morro Bay High or our junior high schools in the summer, and you see teams and band and all these things that happen all summer long. Although the stipend is not large, $1,000 for a head coach or a head activity leader, a way to acknowledge the work that these people are doing all summer long on behalf of the students of San Luis Coastal. So in front of you tonight is an MOU for you to approve.
Thank you. And thanks to all those who are helping us throughout the summer. It's a big job. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us on this item? None. We'll come back to the board. Any questions from the board, comments? Otherwise, this is an action item this evening. Mr. Banfield.
Well, I'd like to approve this.
Would you like to make a motion to
Yeah.
approve it?
Make a motion to approve this, the memorandum.
And a second? by Mr. Buckman. All right, Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Mrs. Roger,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That carries 6-0. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to all the teachers working hard this summer. Just talk to us about the Personnel Commission budget now, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yearly we bring to you from on behalf of the PC. I have a great personnel commission, our three volunteers for this. They get a small stipend, but really volunteers. They do an outstanding job. The PC budget handles the part of our classified budget that's attributed to the PC. So some of the salaries we determine when you see the salaries there, how much of a person's job is connected to the job of the PC or to the PC organization. And that's some of it gives conference training, a whole lot of things that our PC does. I'll give you one quick highlight. One of the conferences we went to last year, my staff went to and brought back a way for us to qualify people that were having a hard time passing an examination. So year after year, these people were in limited term positions, but they could never become our permanent employee. And we were able to research and then find a competency exam by on the job demonstration that they knew how to do the job as opposed to a written test. Those three people were so grateful to the PC for their looking at it differently and the benefit they have with insurance. So it changed their lives. And so again, on behalf of the PC Commission, here's our anticipated budget and the work that they're doing on behalf of our employees.
Thank you. And they do work hard with great attention to detail. All right. This is a discussion. This is not an action item, is
not
my
an action.
understanding. This is discussion only. Is there anyone from the public seeking to talk to us about this? No one? Any questions or comments from the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Block. Our next item is 10.05. Discussion and approval of the employment agreement with the superintendent. And at this time, I will read a statement discussing this. Our next agenda item, which is where we are, is consideration of a new employment contract for Superintendent Dr. Eric Prater. The board has not revised its contract with the superintendent since 2019. The new contract essentially follows the current contract. However, the key provisions of the new contract are as follows, and we'll just summarize those. The term of the contract is 4 years from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2027. The superintendent's annual salary for the 23-24 school year, inclusive of his step increase and the 3% raise provided to all staff, is $264,735. The superintendent will be entitled to receive the same salary increases granted to other staff. In lieu of 2% step increases, the superintendent will be entitled to receive longevity pay in the amount of 2% increases in years 12, 14, and 16. The superintendent will continue to receive the same auto and technology allowances as in previous years with no increase to those allowances. The superintendent shall be entitled to a 403B contribution in the amount of $10,000 per year for the 2024-25, 2025-26, and the 2026-27 school year, so long as he has served as superintendent for that year. For the 2027-28 school year, the contribution amount increases to $12,000. The other provisions of the superintendent's contract remain unchanged. This is an action item tonight. We'll go to the public to see if anyone has comments or questions on this item. Seeing none, we'll come back to the board. We'll make the assumption there is not a lot of discussion because we have spent a great deal of time discussing this. But if there is any, no, otherwise we need a motion. Mrs. Roger.
Acknowledging that the board has had 3 closed sessions around this contract and these modifications. I move approval of item 10.05, the employment agreement between San Luis Coastal and Eric Prater.
I second that.
We have a motion by Ms. Roger and a second by Mr. Banfield. Mrs. Roger,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman, Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
and I am a yes. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Rogers' leadership in my absence at a meeting, and she was instrumental in carrying forward the discussion on this item. So thank you, Ms. Roger. Right, 10.06, discuss and approve employment agreement for the assistant superintendent. And because no one would expect me to remember all this, I will read another statement. So our next, and this is with regard to Mr. Pinkerton. Our next agenda item is consideration of a new employment contract for Assistant Superintendent Ryan Pinkerton. The board has not revised its contract with the Assistant Superintendent since 2019. The new contract essentially follows the current contract. However, the key provisions of the new contract are as follows. The term of the contract is 4 years from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2027. The assistant superintendent's annual salary for the 23-24 school year, inclusive of his step increase and the 3% raise provided to all staff, is $242,042. The assistant superintendent will be entitled to receive the same salary increases granted to other staff. In lieu of 2% step increases, the assistant superintendent will be entitled to receive longevity pay in the amount of 2% increases in years 12, 14, and 16. The assistant superintendent will continue to receive the same auto and technology allowances as in previous years, with no increase to those allowances. The assistant superintendent shall be entitled to a 403B contribution in the amount of $10,000 per year for the 2024-25, 2025-26, and the 2026-27 school years, so long as he has served as assistant superintendent for that year. For the 2027-28 school year, the contribution amount increases to $12,000. The other provisions of the assistant superintendent's contract remain unchanged. Once again, we'll go to the public. Thank you. Mr. Buckman,
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Unless there's comment.
any comments or discussion by the board? Okay, as Mr. Buckman has made a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Mr. Banfield seconds. Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
Mr. Banfield?
Yes.
Mr. Clausen?
Yes.
Ms. Roger?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Keep up the good work. We expect your best. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Frost, before you begin, as a member of the Board Policies Subcommittee, a thorn in your side, lo these many years, I would
Not at
like to
all.
really thank you for the opportunity to work closely with you on development of our board policies and revisions. And Mr. Buckman and I know appreciate very much.
Thank you. It's
Your
truly been a
leadership.
pleasure. It really has. And I have
Right.
2 final board policy for you
Well, final from
Well,
you. These things
well,
go on
for now. Exactly. Starting with the first one is 6173, and this is a mandatory board policy. It's education for homeless children. There are a few updates in this. It reflects a new law that mandates updated policies every 3 years. So you will at least see this every 3 years. It requires annual training regarding homeless students for staff across the district. It requires an annual housing questionnaire, which we already do. And we must annually report to the CDE the number of homeless children who graduate with an exemption. So they graduate with less than the normal amount of high school credits by virtue of need and also their status as homeless. Normally I would come back for a second read, but I do ask the board if you're comfortable with this policy to approve it tonight so that we can move forward with some grants that we are writing. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone from the public with a comment on this item? All right, thank you. Coming back to the board, Mr. Unger, then
So
Mr.
I'm
Buckler.
curious about the exemptions. So is this exemptions from the high school that they are graduating from, since we have different graduation requirements at each high school? Or is this exemption from our general high school diploma? Or is this an exemption from the state required subjects that a student has to take in order to get a diploma?
It's a very good question. It allows them to graduate with fewer credits than the district requires from its comprehensive high schools. And it goes to a state amount that they have. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Buckler.
Yes, you know, there was a time when I would look at this policy and I'd say to myself, yeah, whatever, 2 or 3 homeless kids, it's just not that big a problem because I see who's homeless downtown and it's not little kids. And I spoke with some folks. There was a time in this city where 9 religious organizations opened up their community centers every night. Each one did it, I think, for 2 weeks at a time or a month at a time. Cots were delivered. The first group that was allowed in were families. Second group were homeless women. And then if there was any room left, and there was not room left. There are a lot more homeless children than we could ever imagine in this community. So I'm really proud to have been on the policy committee with Ellen when we put this together.
Agreed. Okay. Because this is a mandated policy and time is of the essence with this one. If the board is comfortable in waiving a second reading, then we could go ahead and take a motion and approve this tonight. Everyone good with that? Thank you. Then I would like a motion with regard to 10.07, please.
I move to approve item 10.07.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Banfield, a second by Ms. Roger. Mr. Unger, you've been last on them.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Ms. Roger,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So that passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second one is 6173.1. This also is mandatory and it's education for foster youth. The primary change in this is that this policy also requires us to report to the CDE the number of foster youth who graduate with an exemption. Again, I'm hoping that you are comfortable with the policy and would agree to approve this evening on first read.
And going to the public first. No one will come back to the board. Any discussion or comments on this? Otherwise, a motion, please.
I'll move approval of item 10.08, proposed revisions to board policy 6173.1, education for foster youth.
I'll second. Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Ms. Roger,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman. I am a yes. That carries 6-0 with one absence. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mrs.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Frost, for everything. Yeah.
Kind of a sad evening. All right. We will move on to our action consent items. My papers in order. I'm going to read the items. Please let me know if you need something pulled. Item 11.01, approve increases to minimum wage and substitute salary schedule. 11.02, approval of certificated and classified personnel items. 11.03, approval of cow card purchases.
Poll, please.
11.04, acceptance of donations.
Poll, please.
11.05, approval of payroll. 11.06, authorization for records destruction. 11.07, disposal of surplus. 11.08, approve quarterly report on uniform complaint filings, the Williams settlement. 11.09, proposed revisions to board policy 0510, school accountability report card, second reading. 11.10, proposed revisions to board policy 4158/4258/4358, employee security, second reading. 11.11, proposed revisions to board policy 6170.1, transitional kindergarten, second reading. 11.12, proposed revisions to board bylaw 9322, agenda/meeting materials, second reading. If I could have a motion, please, for items 11.01 and 11.02, and then 11.05 through 11.12.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Dawson will figure this out later. So we have a motion by Ms. Roger and a second by Mr. Clausen, on those items. Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman, Mr. Clausen,
Yes.
Ms. Roger,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. 11.03, approval of cow card purchases, pulled by Mr. Unger.
Yes, thank you. On 11.03 on page 4 of 11.03, there were 2 payments to Project Surf Camp. I am president of Project Surf Camp, and I will recuse myself from voting on this issue.
Thank you. So on that item, 11.03, I need a motion and a second for approval, please.
Motion approval of 11.03, please.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Clausen, a second by Mr. Banfield. Ms. Dawson, are you getting these? Thank you. Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman,
Yes.
Mr. Unger, just please state that you're abstaining for recuse.
I'm recusing myself for voting on this item.
Thank you. Ms. Roger,
Yes, with the acknowledgement, of Mr. Unger's service as president of Project Surf Camp.
and Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. And I'm a yes as well. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Unger, for explaining your purpose for recusal. 11.04, acceptance of donations, was pulled by Mr. Buckman.
Thanks. So recently there were a lot of scholarships given out, thousands and thousands of dollars. And it made me, when I looked at this item, maybe realize there's other people that are giving money, sometimes on a regular basis. Sometimes it's $20. And it's, sometimes we just adopt this with our consent agenda item. And I didn't count how many people, but it ranges from 20 to almost $9,000. And this is month after month after month. So I don't want to take the board's time and read each one of these, but it's, Bishop's Peak PTA, the ASB at one of the high schools, Black and Gold Boosters. It's, I don't think they get enough credit. So I just want us all to vote on this individually and recognize it.
Thank you. Would you like to make the motion to accept?
Sure. I'd like to move approval of 11.04, acceptance of donations.
Mr. Banfield, your light's on. And you'll second.
I'll
All right,
second
we
it.
have a motion on 11.04 by Mr. Buckman and a second by Mr. Banfield. Mr. Buckman. Would you like to vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was off thinking about
Mr. Buckman.
$20. Yes, thanks. I'd like to
Mr.
vote yes.
Banfield.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Roger.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen.
I need to abstain. I'm on the Black and Gold
boosters.
All right, thank you. So I am a yes, so we have Mr. Clausen abstaining for five, five yeses and one absence. All right, got through it. All right, thank you. Next, anything for advance agenda? All right, then we will move on to reports by board members. Mr. Banfield.
Well, this is a little bit different, but it is a good report. I went to our grandson's birthday party over at a local park in Los Osos. It was his classmates from the TK group. And I asked some of the parents, I said, what'd you think of the program? And they all loved it. It's a very good thing. Yeah. And my daughter-in-law loved it too.
Great, thank you. Mr. Buckman.
Yeah. I don't know if I can top that, but I was at Denny's eating pancakes the other day. And there was a mom and her daughter there eating pancakes. And that wouldn't be much of a story, except the daughter was wearing a summer experience t-shirt and I couldn't resist. So pancakes together a little bit. The daughter was just ecstatic. The mom was just ecstatic. And as I got up to go, they said, oh, and by the way, this is our second year. And so I shouldn't be eating pancakes, but it was really nice. The other thing I would like to do is, I took part in 3 graduations. It was amazing that we, I guess all, but I got to participate. I just want to thank the parents, especially, and also the staff, because the kids are graduated, but it's that support that they get. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters. They had their biennial meeting. A lot of stuff, a lot of more focus on bigger issues and education. But their guest speaker was Dawn Addis, one of our teachers, who spoke wonderfully and just took question after question. So I think she probably felt like she was back in the classroom. So thanks for that.
Anyone else? I'd like to, not so fast, Mr. Unger. I don't do this very often. I also want to thank everyone for the graduations. And, we have some unsung heroes in our midst, I think, when it comes to some of these things that the board participates in, but because we are not around day to day, we don't see the work that goes on behind the curtain. And I particularly would like to call out Mandy Dawson for her wonderful arrangements on our participation in some of these events. And right now I'm speaking particularly about graduation and having our caps and gowns ready together with bobby pins to hold the mortar boards on and the cowls and instructions on a card that states where we're supposed to be and when and exact instructions. And it's really helpful. And this is one example of the work that the support staff does in kind of the care and feeding of the board, and things that are helpful and make us look good. And I appreciate that very much. So thank you. Anyone else? All right. Happy summer, everyone. We'll see you in July.